Biomutant is one of the most anticipated titles of the year, but there is just so much we still don't know about the game itself. That is, until now. Hey there friends, it's Codiak here, one half of the team behind Legacy Gaming, and today we're checking out some incredible leaked images and our first ever look at the classes within the game. Before we get going, as always, I remind everyone that leaks are to be taken with a grain of salt, especially when it comes to games like Biomutant, where the information is closely guarded. Now, for anyone unaware, yes, Biomutant has classes, and those classes help determine the starting weapons and early playstyle of your character. We don't know if that becomes more or less of a factor as the game progresses, but if our years of gaming experience has taught us anything, it's that your class choice definitely matters. This class information was leaked on the Biomutant subreddit, a relatively small but passionate community following the game. The kicker here is that all of the information is in Japanese, but leave it to the internet sleuths to help us unravel the mysteries. A huge shout out to Deadeye420 for translating all of this information. Our first class is the Deadeye. As per the description, Deadeyes are clever and skilled rogues who choose to live without being bound to laws or social norms. Now in the bottom left of each of these images we see distinct boxes, and these are class-specific attributes or abilities. The one on the left is a passive trait, Crackshot, which increases the damage dealt by non-automatic rifles by 20%. The one on the right, Perfect Reload, seems more like an active ability. Attack weapons are instantly reloaded, increasing the damage dealt by the next magazine's ammo by 20%. On the right side of the screen, you'll see a bunch of different bars and icons, and these equate to the character stats. This definitely looks different than the previously released imagery, and it's hard to say which one is closer to the final version we'll see on May 25th. Nevertheless, when translated, we get 6 stats: Vitality, Strength, Intellect, Charisma, Agility, and Luck. It's pretty clear to me, based on the way this character looks, that this class is the Han Solo of the Biomutant world, relying on semi-automatic weapons, but also a little melee combat if the situation calls for it. I really dig the Desperado look here, and I think this is going to be a really popular class for new players. It seems balanced and gives you enough variety that it'll become accessible to pretty much everyone. Our next class is the Commando, one we've known about for quite some time. Described as a trained member of an elite special operations force, Commandos are skilled in operations with a small number of members. The Commando looks to only have one passive trait, but again, that could be all part of this unfinished class. The perk Adrenaline increases your attack speed with melee weapons by 10% when your health is below 20%. What's a bit confusing about this is that the Commando, based on the character we see on the screen, is clearly geared for ranged combat. Of course, the game isn't just about guns, but you'd think a Commando would lean a bit more into the range category. I will say that a Commando wielding something like a Bowie knife would make some sense, and if the idea is that enemies get close, chip away at your health, and then you get a few melee attacks in that are buffed, well, I could buy into that. My gut tells me there is an active ability in the mix here too, but again, leaks are often incomplete, so we'll just have to wait and see. The next class is called the Psyfreak, another one the developers have teased on the road to launch. Often experimenting with abilities and mutations, the Psyfreak are outcasts living in all corners of society. Instead of a passive trait, the Psyfreak has 2 active abilities. The first is Sparkball, which allows the players to shoot out a sparkball in a given direction, damaging enemies. The second is Megamind, which increases the natural recovery time of Psy energy by 10%. This is probably the only class that really stands out to me as different, and as such, I think it's going to be really popular with a lot of players. We've seen plenty of melee and range combat in the gameplay footage up until this point, but the Psy energy aspect of the game is one of those things no one really knows anything about, so I think curiosity mixed with a general enthusiasm for a magic-type class is going to make the Psyfreak a really popular choice for players. Our next class is the Saboteur, a skilled explorer trained in covert operations in both the suburbs and wilderness. The Saboteur's first ability is Twin Silver Grip. The translation isn't great, but I think this is a passive that allows the player to dual-wield one-handed melee weapons, and possibly making it the only class to be able to do so. The second ability is Hypergenetic, which reduces the cost of a dodge by 20%. This is one of those classes I could see people getting excited about under the right circumstances, especially if there are explosives in the mix. Sabotage specialists in the video game world always tend to get matched up with some sort of explosive, and given the unique nature and environment of Biomutant, I can see this being a class chock full of quirky elements. Even if none of that comes true, a dual-wielding, genetically modified maniac is also pretty cool. Next up is the Guardian. The translation is a bit rough, but it's something about specializing in home security and being very loyal. I think it goes without saying that this class is all about big, beefy melee weapons and frontline fighting. The perk is Toughness, which increases the base armor value of your gear by 10%. This is an interesting class and probably the one I'm least excited about at this point. Biomutant is all about stringing moves together in a blur of chaotic destruction, and a slow, cumbersome class like the Guardian just doesn't quite fit. Granted, this is based on what we know of the game without any hands-on playtime. I will say the lance-looking weapon this character is using is pretty awesome, and if there is enough that sets the Guardian apart from the other classes, I bet 1 or 2 people will find it fun enough. The final class, which is unlocked if you pre-order the game, is the Mercenary. Now, no class screen was leaked for the Mercenary, but it's safe to say this is going to be a primarily melee-focused character. We see a katana-like weapon, and we've actually seen it in action in some recently released footage. I would imagine the perks and abilities will all be tied around melee attacks or increasing crit or attack speed to emphasize the more melee-focused playstyle. Class identity is one of those things in RPGs that is intimately tied to the very essence of the game. Think back to Skyrim or Diablo, and even though those are two different takes on RPG games, both featured classes that are so iconic that they're almost common knowledge in the video game world. Biomutant is using the unique nature of the game to push past those common archetypes, and I think it's the most exciting thing about the game so far. Both melee and ranged weapons are in the mix, and because everything is based around this scrap system, the flexibility the developers and ultimately the players have to create unique weapons should be vast. What remains to be seen is how important these classes are in the big picture, how deep the progression goes, and if characters and players are locked into their choices at the beginning of the game. With class traits and abilities showcased in these leaked images, it's pretty clear that each class will have some identity, but will it be the defining factor for a character, or is it just something that's malleable, that can be adjusted within the game to fit the player's current needs? As always, when covering Biomutant, we leave you with more questions than answers, but such is the nature of a major game that we know very little about. So with that in mind, let me know, what class are you most interested in, and what do you think about the classes leaked so far? Share your thoughts in the comment section below, or better yet, head on over to the Biomutant section of our Discord. There, you can link up with other players ready to play the game and stay in the loop with all of our upcoming Biomutant videos. If you did enjoy this video and you want more Biomutant content in your feed, we'd love your support. Click the thumbs up below and consider subscribing to Legacy Gaming. It's completely free for you and it really does help us out a ton. Finally, if you like our channel and are a fan of what we stand for here at Legacy Gaming, you can even help us out by becoming a member. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you're helping evolve the channel and build a better community. Check out the join button below to learn more. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.